an agent. I think most people know that are, querying and writing these days. I work as a literary agent for the Jennifer DiChiara Literary Agency in New York City. And I represent a really wide range of stuff there, from picture books, chapter books, middle grade, graphic novels, young adult, and I do fiction and nonfiction for children and adults. So it really is a very broad spectrum. But I didn't start off like, I don't think people like as little kids are like, someday I want to grow up and be a literary agent. Most of us don't even know what a literary agent is until we need one, really. That's how I was. So I grew up wanting to be a writer. And from, I think about age 10, I decided I was going to be a writer. That's it. And I write young adult novels and picture books. I've done a lot of magazine work and editing and PR and such like that. And I'm actually represented by Jennifer DiChiara. That's how I got into this, actually. She represents me, and I had my first novel came out, What I Meant, through Random House. That was my debut YA. And then after that, I wrote Drawn and Over My Head, 2 more YA novels. And around that time, my first novel came out just when the financial crisis hit. It came out in 2007. And What I Meant was probably, this is sort of a long about way to explain how I became an agent. It's probably one of the first books that Barnes & Noble didn't automatically pick up through Random House. Like in the beginning, if you had a Random House book, all the Barnes & Nobles, all the Borders, remember Borders? B. Daltons, all that, they would pick up and have all of your books. And when the financial crisis was starting to come in with the recession, they didn't really understand what was going on, and they were starting to already, cut back on things and stuff like that. So my book was one of the first to take a hit. My editor got fired. I had a 2-book deal. The book deal the second book was already written and accepted. The cover was done. It was a sequel to What I Meant. It got canceled immediately. So it was a real blow. That was my debut thing. And so all of this, the reason why I bring this up is because as an author, there's a lot of things that can go on to derail you and your work. And what do you do with it? So Jennifer DiChiara saw me using my PR background, and I can be a very positive person. I gotta say, I was not positive then, but I was like determined. Right? Yeah, I was not positive at that moment. It was miserable. I just didn't even know things like that could happen. But I used my background in PR and marketing and all that to make sure that What I Meant, my novel, would sell. And I pretty much hand sold about 80% of the titles that sold, and I earned out. And I was just sort of like this machine, right? So, and I was building relationships with bookstores. So Jennifer was looking at that, and she asked me if I wanted to agent for her. And I was very confused by that. I was just like, I was not sure. So what I basically did was I was a secret agent for a while. I still have a file on my computer that I use. It's called Secret Agent, where I keep all my agent related stuff, because it was like an identity thing. Like, if I'm an agent, how am I a writer? I have all these friends that are writers. If I'm an agent, how are they going to, relate to me? Or am I going to have to reject them? I mean, it was like I just was not sure. So I did it secretly for a while. And Jennifer would just sort of share some queries with me and stuff like that. And then finally I had to admit, you're right. I want to do this. This is a good fit for me. I'm very much a mama bear. I like to take care of my clients just like my kids, and I brought in my writing and my PR and all that. So as time went on, I've fully embraced being an agent. I've now been an agent at the agency for 10 years now. I just had my 10-year anniversary there, which is crazy. Yeah, thank you. It's crazy, right? It's just time goes on. We were just talking about that, right, Rob? I mean, you've been doing your website for just a little bit longer than that. And that's great. I mean, sticking with things and doing something like that. But anyway, so now I'm an agent and I'm a writer, and since I've been agenting, it's very busy, lots of work, very all consuming, like you can never catch up. You just can't. And, while I was waiting to connect with the call with you, I was looking at my query tracker thing. I had like about 500 queries there. So I was like looking through them. You're never, you're always working. So I didn't really do any more. It was hard for me to write for a while, quite a while. And I just started writing again as far as doing picture books and things. So I have 2 picture books that came out. I have a whole pile of books here to show you guys, like as we talk. But anyway, so the first one I did was with my husband, Baldev, and it's this one, Green Green, A Community Gardening Story. And it's illustrated by Sonia Sanchez, and it came out through FSG. So that was my first one. And then the second one I did is called A Day So Gray. And it's illustrated by Aaliyah Marley, and she's wonderful too. And that came out through Clarion. So my writer's brain is starting to warm up again. So I feel like my double identities are starting to kind of thrive side by side a little bit more. Only took 10 years. So that's my short bio.
I've got all kinds of questions to
I bet you do.
before we're done. I do like the idea that we started about the same time a decade ago. And so we've been moving from opposite sides of the country to this moment. That's but I'm curious, because that is such a terrible experience just right off the bat with your second book getting canceled, and you're being fired. And then I know that you had worked as a publishing assistant briefly for 4 months. It was wonderful, and then everybody got laid off.
You heard that one. Yeah, that's true. That was my first job out of college. I was the assistant to the publisher at Banbury Books in Wayne, Pennsylvania. It was a great job. I mean, the people were wonderful. 4 months later, they just said, okay, we're closed. That was it. No health care. Bye. So maybe I should have known. I should have seen this coming. I don't know.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, you must be somebody that doesn't let the grass grow under you. You must absorb these body blows and say, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but obviously you've stayed in publishing.
Yeah, I think that's something we all do when we face rejection. I mean, like, I'm an agent and I'm also a writer, so I feel like being on both sides of that, it gives me some compassion, but also some perspective, even as a writer as well. Like, it's business, right? It's wherever, when business meets art, that's where things kind of get sticky, right? Because you can have these wonderful works, but if you can't find the market for it, or the market isn't ready for it for whatever reason, it can really be very difficult. But it's really, I think, Rob, I think it's really about identity, right? Like, who are you and what do you believe in? And I really, like, since age 10, I was a writer. I can't say I was very good for a long time. I wrote a lot of crap. I promise you that. Like, there's these people that are like early bloomers, and they're like winning awards, and they're in the newspaper, and they're in like the arts journal, and they're published. That was not me. But I was a writer. I just knew it. It's my passion. I'm pretty stubborn. I guess there's some of that, but you also it's not just about being stubborn. You have to be willing to learn and adapt, right? Because if you just have like one thing that you do and you're like, I'm gonna sell it, and you're like doing that for like 20 years and you're not changing and growing and learning, that's not what being a writer is about. It's always about kind of adapting and learning and growing, but also not letting these kind of things crush your spirit. Right? You have to keep a certain sense of play and that love and that wonder that you feel when you wrote that first story, or you started numbering pages and dreaming of writing a book, or you read your very first author that you absolutely were passionately in love with, right? I mean, those are the kind of feelings that keep you going and have nothing to do with papering your wall with rejections, or, having a book canceled after, and pouring your heart into something and finding out it doesn't quite work out the way it was supposed to. These things are always going to happen, right? So the question is, are you going to give up? Are you, why are you doing it? And, it's a long road. I think that's what it is, right? I mean, we've been doing this for 10, 11 years, right? As far as agenting and your website, and you can see all the changes that and directions life is taking you through. And you have to kind of cut yourself some slack. There's times where things are just not working out, and then there's times where things are golden. which makes you worry that that's not going to work out, right? Right? It's like, oh no, it's going well. You know, you wait for that big foot to come down.
I hadn't considered that. Now I'm terrified.
My whole point is things go up and down, and it's a long game. It's always a long game with publishing. You know, it's not just that one book, that one canceled story, that one bad experience. It's also all the great stuff and all the promise of, you know, moving forward and, you know, reinventing your ideas and believing in yourself, finding your voice, you know, and sticking to it. And, you know, I see it with my clients as well. You know, their careers go through different things. And sometimes, you know, a client will be like, you know, I just had this experience, actually, it's very funny, just yesterday, where I have a client who was like, we had this call just a few months ago. She's like, I think maybe I should give up. You know, what do you think? Nothing's happening. I put all my time into it. Maybe I should move on. And I just said, you know, you got to do what you got to do. You got to earn money. But if this is who you are, and this is your dream, stick with it. You know, if you have to do it part-time for a while or whatever, I believe in you. And so just yesterday, she got a great offer on a work. So yeah, and I reminded her of that conversation. I said, remember that? Remember you were going to quit? So, you know, I always say this, and I've said this for years, you don't know for sure what's going to happen. The only thing you know for sure is that if you give up, it won't happen for you. And there's different levels of happening, right? I mean, there's like, oh, I need to be a bestseller. But these days we can publish our own work. We can reach readers. We can, you know, nobody's stopping you from creating and writing and from sharing your work, you know? So it's just a matter of like, will you be you know, there's always another thing like, oh, you know, you get published. Oh, you're not a bestseller. Oh, you're a bestseller. You're not the bestseller. You're, you know, like there's always like some other goalpost where writers can be like, oh, boo-hoo, you know, poor me, you know. So instead be the other side. Be like, I'm so proud of myself. I love what I did. I captured this moment that I really wanted to capture. I connected with somebody, they read it and they loved it, you know, or their child, you know, it sparked something in their child. I mean, that's real, you know, that's real stuff. So yeah, so I guess, you know, part of it's being stubborn and part of it's just, it's your identity, you know, that's what makes you stick with it.
I love this idea of you as almost like a superhero, like you're cradling your canceled second novel, like Batman cradling his dead parents, and you say, "Never again. I will make sure that happens to another author."